Welcome to this week's episode of the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. This week I have actor Michael Simon Hall, star of the upcoming feature film Women. How are you doing today, Michael?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be speaking with you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
No
I like
problem.
the name of your podcast. Pretty cool name.
Yeah, it's
Where did that come from?
Well, it originally came from a song by the Replacements back in their 1989, I think, album. There was a song called Rock and Roll Ghost that just stuck with me. And then when I started a blog in the 2000s and then did a website, and it just kind of kept with me. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I think when I heard the name, I'm like, why does that sound familiar to me? And I don't know. I know vaguely of the Replacements, but
yeah, well, it wasn't like a single or anything. It's just an album track. So that's why I kind of liked fitting, because I used to write more about music back in the day. So
nice.
So,
Cool.
Well, let's talk first about how you came to get the role in Women. How did this find its way towards you?
Well, I got really lucky. I mean, the director just reached out to me. I think he found me on the internet. I think through the internet, movie database, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw, because, normally for these jobs, you go through an agent and you're submitted and whatnot. And,
Mm-hmm.
but this is like, he discovered me. It was pretty great. They reached out to me. I'm not even, I still to this day, I don't know exactly how he found me, but he reached out to me, said, "We think you'd be right for this role of this professor, this psycho professor," basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm not quite sure how to take that, but, but no, it was great. And then I put myself on tape. We had to do this remotely. And
Mm-hmm.
because he's all the way in Iceland, believe it or not,
Right.
He's an Icelandic filmmaker who's had a lot of success in Iceland. And this is his first foray into the United States market. And so I felt really privileged that he picked me. And so that's how it started. And then, and then we started conversations, and over time preparing for the shoot. And he's very collaborative, and I got to share a lot of ideas with him. And some of those made it into the film, some of them didn't. And
right.
So
what had he seen you in particular that got him interested? Did he ever say?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. Because I'd only started. I've done theater most of my life, and I only started doing film about 5 years ago, and so I didn't have a lot of credits. But I think one thing I did was there was The Jinx, which was a very popular documentary on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
The Jinx of the life and deaths of Robert Durst. He was a serial killer. Or the alleged serial killer.
Right.
That was very popular, and I was in that. But those are like we were doing reenactments of scenes from his life, and
Mm-hmm.
I played his father at one point in a few episodes. But it's like that was not a major role, but I guess it was partly to do with that project. And then I don't know what else he saw.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some. I really don't know.
Okay.
But so I think it was more about, I think he felt this kind of essence from something coming from me that he thought, and I was, the kind of the right type that he was looking for. And then once I auditioned for him, and then he confirmed, he says, "Yes, okay, good. We made the right decision."
Right. So what were your initial thoughts about the character he was asking you to play?
Oh, well, my initial thoughts were, when you're asked to play someone who's like a very dark character,
Mm-hmm.
you can't help, for a moment you think, well, why did he pick me? Is it like, am I really, you start to think about yourself and think, is there a darkness in me that he saw that I can't see in myself? And,
Mm-hmm.
Is that little bit of that little bit of insecurity sometimes that actors can have, but then that passes very quickly and you realize, you're just there to tell a story. And I mean, of course, I wanted to know. I mean, the main thing is if a script is well written, the script answers almost all your questions. Your
Right.
script is your Bible, so to speak. It gives you everything. And even if in a script, in a film script, as opposed to like a stage play, a lot of times there's more details in a stage play because it's more verbose. There's more language.
Mm-hmm.
So usually verbal language. So there's a lot more clues sometimes in a stage play, but in a script it can be much more sparse. There can be fewer lines, but still all the clues should be there. Everything you basically need to know about the character should be revealed through the script, and it also not just through the dialogue, but also through the details about how he wants to tell the story and what his concept is about what you see and when you see it, reading the directions about, what is the camera doing? What do we hear? What is the shot? And those things can really inform you of the kind of world he wants to create, and also what's going on with the character psychologically, so, and of course, a lot of those things can change on set, and you have to be open, I feel, you got to be ready for anything when you walk on set. You have to be full of ideas and feel like you have a grounding of the basic truth of the character, but you got to be willing to go with the flow because things change, of course.
Right.
You end up shooting like out of sequence, or even if you're shooting out of sequence, and then the day of, he changes the sequence. And that happened a few times. You can have logistical problems with the location, or the weather's not right, and you have to delay something. You say, we're going to skip this. Now we're going to work on this scene. And so you have to be willing to go with that flow and be ready. And so that's, anyway, but to get back to your question about, after you look at I think you don't ask questions of the director to really look at the script in detail. And then you go back and you ask questions. And I asked some questions about his childhood, about his upbringing. And I also, because this character, apparently he had a traumatic experience as a child. And that is revealed in the script, in the story about his father abusing his mother. And that's kind of like the seed of his own behavior that, came forth, where he started to be abusive towards women.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other things, like I think it's important to also act, you want to kind of get inside the director's mind, even beyond the script, because it really is an expression of that person's, world, or their idea of this particular idea. And that you want to know why do they want to write this story, and where did they get the idea to write this story from? And he was inspired partly by, or, I don't know if inspired is the right word, but he was intrigued by these real stories that really happen. And it is partly based on an actual true story. But there's been many of these stories, unfortunately, in our current society, for the past, I don't know how many years, of people being kidnapped and being kept right in their own communities, and no one really even knows what's going on, and no one can believe that it's actually happening. And if you're lucky enough, some of these people are able to escape and to go on to lead a fairly, so-called normal life after that. And we've heard great stories about how women have escaped, and this is a story that goes into that. It's a psychological thriller. It's about how do these people get into that situation where they end up being victims of and being succumb to this kind of situation, and then how are they able to be indoctrinated in such a way that they want to, for some part of them wants to stay instead of fighting to get out.
Right.
Then there's a thing called Stockholm syndrome, which I'm sure you've heard of, and where you start to fall in love with your persecutor, or you start to have this codependent relationship with the person who's abusing you, and you don't want to leave. And so it explores those dynamics in the story too. And I think that's interesting. That's one of the most interesting things about this. So we talked a little bit about that, and then there's I mean, those are some of the things I asked him about.
Okay. Something you were talking about that may be interested. You had mentioned about, sometimes, because I'm guessing the shoot was shorter and limited budget and all that, so that necessitated sometimes, the kind of on the fly moments where they had to change things. Does your theater background help with that, or how do you end up feeling during that process? Does it take you a little bit of time to reverse course and get back into the headspace of the new scene you're going to be shooting?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're saying, did you say based on my theater experience, how that
Yeah,
helped?
I mean, because because with theater, you're very, you're prepared for the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
For one night. So do you draw on that, or is it just, or is it something else?
Yeah, I definitely do. And other things too that I've learned since that time. So, but you know what? Can we just pause for a second?
Sure.
Okay, just because I forgot to turn on a light, and that's partly why I realize it's a little dark.
No, not a problem.
And then this light in front of me will help a little bit. So so we can edit, I guess, right where I start giving you the answer to this.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, about this thing about using my theater experience. Sure, it's true. When you do in theater, you prepare the whole performance in advance, and you know the script. And I think one of the things that you really learn from theater is discipline. I mean, not that you don't have discipline on set, or as a screen actor, of course you do, but to get a grounding in theater is very valuable. I think it's the most challenging performing medium that you can work in. And it's a discipline to really have your performance, fully realized before you go on stage. And that takes a lot of work, and it takes usually a lot of preparation over several weeks or even months, maybe. And so that you're ready to go, and then hopefully you step on stage and you could just let it fly, And so like when you get, so I take the same approach when going on set. I know I'm, obviously I'm off book. I know all my lines. I have a concept for each scene that I'm doing and the purpose of each scene. What is the point of each scene? What is my, what do I really want and need in that scene? And what are my relationships with the other people that are in that scene at that point in the story, and what has happened already, what has not happened yet, and those kinds of things. And so you kind of compartmentalize each scene is almost like its own little story. And so when he says to me, because this actually happened on set, one of my most challenging scenes, I have a monologue that I deliver a speech about, because he's a professor. And he has a passion for aesthetics and literature and music. And so at one point he shares a story with his captives from the story of Galatea, which is a Greek, from Greek mythology. And he talks about this, and it's a long scene. We had to, and that was one of, in terms of the actual text work, was one of the most challenging scenes I had to do. And one day he came to me and he said, "Mike, sorry, we have to change the schedule. Are you ready to do the Galatea scene?" Because it was supposed to be the next day. And I said, "Yeah, give me an hour." So, because I was already ready. I had already done so much preparation for that scene. I didn't need a lot of time. I just needed a little time to go review the lines, and then we shot it, and so I felt really good. I said, "Thank God, Michael, you were prepared," and and I think that made, he was relieved and happy that we were able to do that. So, and there's a few things like that happen, and that you really, I guess you could say it's sort of like the equivalent of when you're on stage, you have to know how to think on your feet and be in the moment, and that on stage, anything could go wrong. A lot of times someone might miss an entrance, someone might drop a line, something weird might happen in the audience, someone might make a distracting noise. There could be a technical problem. The light doesn't come on and you're in the dark, or the music doesn't start when it's supposed to start, or your microphone goes out and there's, or something. So you have to be able to go with the flow and just keep it going. And it's kind of like that same mindset sort of, applies when you're on set too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. Where did you film this at?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, so yeah, it definitely feels like the South. So that's.
Oh, what did you see? Did you see the trailer? Did you see?
No, I watched the film last night.
Oh, they gave you the whole film. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, great. So, I forgot you're looking at this from the perspective of someone who actually saw it. So I didn't know that. I didn't
Oh,
necessarily.
that's fine. No, that's fine.
No.
Yeah, no, I watched it last night. I tend to, if watching something, I tend to watch the night before an interview, so it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah. So it was in Jacksonville, Florida, and we had various locations there. Primarily a nice big house, kind of a mini mansion, I guess you could call it, and so it was it was a nice place to shoot.
Well, you're lucky you spent most of your scenes indoors.
Yeah, most of my scenes are indoors. I guess there are a few outdoor scenes here and there, a few. And I guess it was pretty hot down there. Yeah, we were in the air conditioning. It was in the middle of the summer. It was like July, I guess, or June, July.
Doesn't sound like a fun time to be in Jacksonville, Florida.
It was hot. It was hot. Yeah, that's true. I forgot. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah.
Yeah, your co-star spent a lot of time outside.
Actually, you know what? It's really funny now that you're saying this. Oh, geez. Even in the house, especially in the upper floors, it got very hot. And even though we had the air conditioning on, it got very hot. And you could see me beating up a few times. You could see me starting to sweat a little bit.
Well, I'm sure that
we had
bringing in the cameras,
Yeah, we had to keep on dabbing my face and everything. And there were a few particular times when it was really quite hot, uncomfortably hot. Right. And you just got to go with the flow. You just got to do it anyway.
Yeah. How long of a shoot was it?
The shoot itself wasn't that long. It was about a month.
Okay.
It was very, kind of down and dirty. And he has a very efficient team that he's been working with for a while. Really good camera guys, So they really work together as one mind, and I think that really is is a key to good filmmaking. Is you have a really good team. The director and the cinematographer, your camera guys are really like thinking and working together. Yeah. And so we shot very quickly. We didn't do tons of takes. We shot, we did a few takes, and then we just did the different setups you have to do. A lot of it was done with like Steadicam and handheld. So that makes it a lot quicker and a lot easier to do different setups.
Right.
There's less equipment involved, and it can be, you can move a lot more quickly that way. And it adds a nice, I think, quality to the film too. It was pretty quick. And that's another thing about, being ready to go and you got to ready to let it rip. You have a quick discussion about the scene, some of the scenes, and then you try a few things and then you just go,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What year did you film this last year or in 2019?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out in theaters like last fall, and then of course because of the pandemic that didn't happen. And then it was gonna be like earlier in like February or something, and then everything's gotten pushed back. So I'm really happy. It's coming to theaters, select theaters, May 28th. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how you got into the head of the character itself. I suppose without spoiling too much about what happens, because I went in pretty cold, so I wasn't even sure which character you were playing, quite frankly, until I got to the point where your character showed up. So
yeah.
what do you have to do to prepare for a character like this that has, let's just call it a very dark side to him?
Well, again, I think it's just really surrendering to the script and really trying to get into the world that Anton created, and then it is it can be kind of tricky when you play characters like this because again you take it from the page. There's all different kinds of villains, all different kinds of expressions of evil, right? And this guy's he's almost in a way, I mean, I don't know how you would diagnose him psychologically, but he's almost like a split personality. Okay. And so I started to explore it from that point of view, and that he's extremely, if he's not actually schizophrenic, he's highly compartmentalized. And that's kind of the way I looked at it, that he's a very intelligent person. Okay. And Anton stresses, he said, this guy's brilliant. He's very smart. Okay. And so kind of one of the detriments of being very smart is, in a way, you can have a mental strength to you that allows you to compartmentalize. And you also see this in, like, they say it's if you talk about narcissistic behavior, narcissists, and there's other terms that people use now, he's also falls into kind of that category. And those people can be highly compartmentalized. So there's kind of like two sides of him operating but they can happen in a flash. And I mean, he's been living in the public eye. See, he's not some recluse who doesn't socialize, who is not integrated into society. He's out there every day. He's in the public spotlight to some degree. He's a popular teacher at a college, professor. So he has a way of being able to be very, charming and helpful and even kind. With his students, but that's all, to some degree, that's a facade. He's been playing this along for decades now. And I'm not giving it too much away because I think that, the way this movie is set up is that the professor is doing bad things. You just don't know the details of it, and you don't know how it's going to end up. And of course, we're not going to talk about that, how it ends up.
Right.
What happens to these women? Okay, these particular women.
Yeah.
The two particular women in the movie, and Anna Marie Dobbins is one of them, and Anna Mesh is the other actress, and they were great to work with. So, but I think what I started to feel was interesting is that I started to feel sort of crazy myself, and I started to really try to, when I was preparing and trying to live out these scenes for myself and what Bradley's going through, I started to feel kind of disoriented, and I started to feel kind of disconnected, and at one point that started to concern me, because you should always have kind of some kind of deep, grounded, organic connection with the character, right? And but I felt disconnected in some way, and then I realized it's because he's disconnected. Okay. And this is what happens when you really take on the character. Some things start to naturally assimilate organically in you that you don't even realize that it's happening. So, and I started to realize that it started to affect me mentally, where I started to feel disconnected because he's constantly lying. He's constantly trying to negotiate with reality and trying to, keep on getting, keeping in the good graces of everybody and not revealing what's going on. But he's also, I think, in his own way, he's trying to say to himself that he actually isn't that bad a guy. He's trying to believe that he's actually, in some way, that he's a good person.
Yeah.
But he can't help but do terrible things. And that's the terrible, and that's the terrible feeling too, is that knowing that you're doing something wrong and you can't help yourself and you can't stop. And that's a terrible that's a terrible thing to feel that you've lost control in some way, and especially when you're hurting other people, you know. So I started to feel all that, and it started to mess with me a little bit, you know. And then I just started to accept that was his that was his psychological state, and I had to kind of just embrace that and let it be there, you know. And hopefully that contributed to the reality of the character. Hopefully, that it comes across that there's little moments where you see a little conflict going on with him, or a little reveal, or a little here and there, that it kind of peeks through, you know. But it was, it was quite, you know, it was an interesting challenge.
So you were saying that it did kind of stay with you at some points. How did that, what did you feel when those moments kind of, maybe, did they overpower you? Did they just, were you able to recognize it quickly? You know, does it put you in a different mood, perhaps? It's you know, it's like you're not able to shake the character. Is anything like that?
Well, it's interesting because, well, a few things with this character, you know, I don't want to reveal too much, but you never get to the point where he's not this kind of character that, except maybe towards the very end, where he starts to try to confront the reality of what he's doing. And so he's really pretty buttoned up, or trying to keep himself under control. And, so because of that, I was, you know, that kind of, in a way, protected me from feeling what was deeper down inside that he could not feel, you know, in a way. But I do feel like, you know, like, say, I think the things on set that upset me, that were the most challenging, is when I had to do things that were actually do some aggressive things towards my victims. And you're working with real people. These are real actors, you know, they're real women. And this is a challenge of being an actor, is that you have to be able to, you're there in service of the story, and it might make me feel uncomfortable to do these things, but I have to do it. And I just have to find the truth in it and simply execute the action and do the action. And, you know, we would joke ahead of time, and I apologized to them before we started shooting. I said, I apologize for every bad thing I'm going to say, everything I'm going to do, you know. And you try to develop a good rapport and a sense of trust with your, you know, your teammates, your fellow actors, with the whole team. And I think that's really important. So that helps carry you through those challenging days, or those challenging scenes that you have to do. But everyone's a professional, you know, everyone was a professional, and we understand the challenges, and you just execute, you know. But the times when I felt the most uncomfortable, when I had to do something kind of violent, and that kind of, because that's a real action that I had to do, and that then it gets in your body. And then when it was over, I was kind of like, you know, I was kind of wound up. My adrenaline was running, and I felt, you know, I couldn't help but feel a rush of of discomfort and you know, I was going to say disease, but, you know, in a lack of ease and upset about it. So, you know, when those things happen, one good thing is to just go get away from the set for a little while, go take a walk, go out. I do that a lot. I go out and look at nature, give yourself some space, put your attention on something else, change your attention, just try to get your attention out of your head and put it into the environment around you. And so, you know, and for me, taking a nice walk can help do that. So that's something that I did a few times. I'm not the kind of person that, especially with a character like this, I don't feel I need to live in it 24 hours a day. I don't need to, you know, be overly method about it. I feel because I've assimilated enough of the character in all my preparation in the months leading up to the movie, and then you're on set, I don't need to press it. So I'm happy to leave it behind as much as I can at the end of the day, you know, because because it's already become part of almost my subconscious. So I don't need to do anything more than that to keep it alive. I know it'll be there the next morning when I wake up and I start to prepare the scenes for the next day and review my lines and whatever. It'll be there, you know. So, and especially again with a character like this, I think it's important to kind of let it go and get away from it, you know. So I would try to as much. Yeah.
Is there a process for at the end of the day letting go of the character, or I mean, how have you to actually, like, do you do meditation? Do you know?
I think the main thing is, like I said, to try to do some activities that just fully try to get your attention off of it.
Yeah.
And healthy activities, like,
yeah.
You know, some people do some crazy stuff on, you know, I don't know, whatever. They'll go out and go out partying or something. Or, I mean, I'm not talking about that.
Right.
You know, you really need to make sure you're well rested and that you're well fed. That's really important. That you have proper energy and stamina. And so, but, you know, like I said, like go for a walk, maybe get some exercise. Maybe, spend time talk to some friends, maybe spend some fun time with the cast doing something totally unrelated or different, and just try to have fun and put your attention on other things.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to be confident enough to know that you can let it go, and that when you come back to it, you'll be able to get it back again. You'll get back in that place when you need to, but you have to be able to let it go. Yeah. And you have to give yourself that power to be able to do that. And again, that's like some people, I think actors feel like they have to cling on to the role even when they're not on set because they're afraid they're going to lose something. Right. And I think that's, it can be sort of a lack of certainty about what you're doing. And so you should be comfortable enough to totally forget and let it go as much as you can.
Yeah, right.
So,
have you been able to see the final film?
Yeah, I've seen it.
And what are your thoughts on it and your performance in it?
Oh God, yeah. I don't know. I was lucky I got to see the film in advance. I mean, usually that doesn't happen. So
right.
No, I mean, I enjoy it. It's hard to be objective, looking at your own performance and looking at the whole piece of, this whole story objectively when you're on set. And, I enjoyed it. I thought it was, I think the character's interesting that I play. And I try to look at it objectively, like see how, as if I, as much as I can, if I didn't know anything about this story, about this character,
Gotcha.
how would it come across to me?
Right.
And I also like the performances that the other actors give, and Adam Dorsey, who plays the detective, does a great job, and he's kind of like the heart of the story, and he does I think he adds some really nice stuff to the storytelling. Because my character, whatever heart he has is pretty buried,
Yeah.
So, So we'll just see what other people think. It's more important what the audiences think than what I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I suppose that's true. I just have a couple more questions, and I can let you go. But
no problem.
What have you been working on since then? Were you able to do anything during the pandemic at all? Any kind of work at all? Or are you working now? What's your situation?
Well, I've been a few things. I was lucky. I had some. I mean, I wasn't working during the pandemic. I was lucky I had some other things come out during the pandemic. I mean, I worked with Mark Ruffalo on I Know This Much Is True,
right?
The miniseries on HBO, and that was, it was great working with him. And he ended up winning the Emmy and the Golden Globe and the SAG Award for his performance, which was very well deserved. Very happy for him. And anyway, so it was great to work with him and Derek Cianfrance on that. And that was actually shot around the same time that Women was shot. And then but it aired, during the pandemic, and so that was great to have some of your work at least out there during that time. And then I also I did a spot on The Politician, which is on Netflix, and so that aired. And then right now well, this whole time I've been working on actually on a stage piece, a musical, and we've been workshopping the musical. It's called Henry Box Brown, where I play a character who's kind of the antithesis of Bradley. He's an abolitionist minister in the 1740s in Virginia, who helps a slave escape through the Underground Railroad. And Henry Box Brown is the title because Henry, this is based on a true story. Henry, he escaped through the underground by shipping himself in a box.
Yeah.
And of course he needed assistance, and I helped him. My character helps him. And then thereafter he became known as Henry Box Brown. And it's a very inspirational story. So we've been working on that. I mean, we in different iterations for the past few years, and we just had a workshop. We were all under quarantine, and under CDC guidelines, and with the help of the Actors Union, Actors Equity, and then we're exploring a new script and some new songs in the show, and so we worked on this intensely at offsite, actually up in Maine at this beautiful retreat for 3 weeks, and then we did a presentation, and that went very well. And we're going back on the road. We actually had started a tour just right before COVID started. It was in February of 2020, and then of course the tour got shut down. And so we're going to continue. We're going to resume it in this summer in August, I believe, and we're going to be in Tennessee. Yeah, so that's something I've been working on, and we're really excited about the future possibilities for that show. And then I've done some little Zoom, some virtual theater with a theater company here in the city called the Fusion Theater Company. We did a piece, and another piece I did, just to keep busy, keep something going. And then I also worked on I started developing a one-man show about the life of George M. Cohan, who was, do you know who he was? George M. Cohan?
No. The name sounds familiar.
Yeah. I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy.
Okay.
Yankee Doodle do I die. Yeah. So he was the forefather of what we call American musical theater back in the early 1900s, and he was a great song and dance man, impresario. The only statue that you see in Times Square of anyone is of George M. Cohan.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's a solo show about his life, because I used to do. It's a kind of I know it seems far out there, it's very different from playing Bradley Gilmore in Women.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting and challenging thing to consider doing, and he had a great story to tell, he was an amazing guy. So I started to explore that, and I'll just tell you really, while I was rehearsing that in one room next to me, Hugh Jackman was also rehearsing his show, because he's coming to Broadway with a show, The Music Man.
Right.
A revival of The Music Man, which is supposed to start a year ago, and then now it's coming. I guess they're going to hopefully, I don't know when they're going to start this year, but he was working on
about the fall.
Yeah, well, Broadway's opening in the fall, and but not which exact shows. I think it's like Hamilton and Wicked, and there's one other show. Oh, Lion King are going to open. Be the first 3 shows to open, apparently in September, which is great news. I don't know when The Music Man's going to open, but anyway, so that's a great, and that it's funny because he's kind of that character is sort of like a song and dance man, a traveling salesman, song and dance man, and so he was working on his stuff in one room, and I was working on my stuff in another room, and that was pretty cool, and it was great to do something like that, to keep yourself creative and inspired during this, during during the this period of lockdown, as you call it. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I really thank you for your time today, Michael, and giving us a peek into how you went about with the character of Bradley and women, and a little idea of what you might be up to next. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. You have a great rest of your day, and stay safe.
Okay, man.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.